you bottle it and sell it, right?
I am
Well,
trying to go.
You know what I do? I drink a bottle of water about once every 2 months, and I just put the thing underneath the faucet.
I do it all the time, man.
I drink out of water hoses, y'all. I
Right out
can't
the
help
water
it,
hose.
you know.
I drink out of the creek on Saturday.
I learned to eat anything back in the
Yeah. On purpose?
Yeah, man. Creek water's good for you.
Every time I pay my bill up here, I say, you make sure you tell Mr. Jeff, and I can tell it right there, it's the best tasting water I've ever tasted. And I mean it, it's good water.
We should do the Pepsi challenge with our water and maybe some of the
That's a good point, that's a good point.
So we're good to go. All right. Well, let's do this then. The time is now 6:02, and we'll now call to order the special meeting of the City Council on the topic of broadband feasibility study and understanding of the study. And today is July the 14th, 2022. The time is 6:02. So let's jump right into it.
Should we call the roll?
We should call roll. Sorry, I don't have an agenda in front of me. I'm kind of flying blind, but I'm getting there.
James Wansley.
Here.
Zach Briscoe.
Here.
Georgia Harris. Here. John Chambers.
Here.
Michael Lowe.
Here.
And Heath Rosenstein.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please hold.
Is that our hold music?
Started it kind of took me by surprise. All right. So that takes us to item B on the agenda, other action items, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. And number 1 is discuss, consider, and provide direction on the fiber feasibility study provided by CobbFendley and for future tasks related to fiber projects within the city. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and council, as you all know, we've been working on a broadband fiber feasibility study with CobbFendley for some time now, and earlier today I sent you the draft report, and CobbFendley is gracious enough to be here tonight to help present the information. But I do think when Melissa and I spoke, we want to start with maybe an update from you, Mayor, on your middle mile committee meeting that you had earlier this week, and then I will give an update on a meeting that I had earlier today.
Yeah, so yesterday morning was a meeting in Kilgore for the East Texas Council of Governments and their Middle Mile Committee that they put together to research the feasibility of seeking funds to build a middle mile network. And middle mile means everything from, it can be a really small region, kind of like how we have for our middle mile here in the city, or it can be connecting counties to counties. And theirs is one that's connecting counties to counties. Multiple segments through multiple counties. In an effort to try to kind of accomplish maybe some of the same things that we're getting here, making sure that there's easy access to build out the endpoints if ISPs want to come in, internet service providers want to come in and say, hey, there's already a backbone there, all we have to do is connect these neighborhoods and we're good to go. So we got to hear the pitch on that and kind of what they're hoping to do. It looks like about $100 million project. It's a really big project. They have a very aggressive timeline for trying to get in with the NTIA grant application process, which is September the 30th. And that's going to require, if there's matching funds, which there are, the matching funds on that is anywhere from 30 to 50%, where the more funds you match, the higher chance you have of winning the funding. Because there are matching funds involved, and they're asking at the county level, and I guess the counties will reach out to cities and ask at the city level. So it seems like a lot of coordination to take place before that. And there are a couple of counties that have already started moving on some of their projects. Wood County was one of them, where this project that EDCOG is proposing is a 3 to 5 year timeline, which is kind of a long time to wait for the services that these counties need. So they've already started in motion. It would wind up being redundant with some of the things that the counties are already starting to do. So I'm not sure there's going to be 100% buy-in from all the counties. Our county, Smith County, has some objections to pursuing it as well. So I think that for us, not only if it does come forward and it is made whole, it's not going to interfere with what we're trying to do here in the city of White House, which is to create competition, to create a marketplace. If anything, after it comes through, maybe it'll open up some more corridors. But in order to win those NTIA funds, they're going to have to prove that they're reaching communities that are unserved or underserved. And I'm not sure that the definition really fits us as somebody that's underserved, because we do have a provider here, at least one that provides some of the high-speed internet access points. So There is gonna be another meeting, that one didn't have any internet service providers present. There is gonna be another meeting in 2 weeks that'll have those providers there to talk about what partnerships with them might look like. But for now, I think that we should go ahead and move forward with what we're doing, regardless of what that turns into.
So what were some of the objections Smith County had?
It had to do with competition, like paving the way for competing with existing providers was one of them. Using taxpayer funds to fund a project that looks like it's multi-jurisdictional, that kind of gets muddy when you do it in a big project like that.
Multi-jurisdictional as in outside of our county?
Yeah, our county's funds going towards something that may fund projects that are outside of other counties, was one of them. Just the timeline was a big one, like a lot of pushback on, I've seen smaller projects in this take longer to make it through, the government process. So those are some of the big ones.
Competition though? You said they had issues or they had concerns with new competitors coming in against our current,
Yes,
Is that right?
There's some counties that view it that way, yeah.
like our county does, but why, like what's the reasoning behind that? Did they say?
It's just some officials see internet service as just something that should be accomplished through the marketplace and through capitalism, and they don't see it as a utility that should be provided to other areas equitably. It's just something that'll be addressed by the market, and it's not something that should be addressed by public funds.
So they're in favor of capitalism, basically, you're saying? Not being funded through government
Maybe a
ISPs, is
protected
that what you're saying?
monopoly.
No, I don't want to put words in there. I don't want to speak to them to that regard. I can just.
But
you can say-
therefore, if we have 5 ISP providers, they're for that, as long as it's private
As
sector.
long as as long as they were just brought in because they look at the market and they want to enter that market.
Okay.
They see a problem with taxpayer funds being used to help expedite delivery of internet service.
Interesting.
Which there are some,
Utility.
What did
What's
you
that?
say?
I mean, in
Yeah.
our city, water is a utility that we manage.
Yeah.
and there's some examples in Texas where they do have, complete city-owned services, and then they have some that are not so much, 100% shared, it's kind of a,
Yeah, there's several cities that have done it several different ways. There's
Sure.
some cities that have partnered up with major service providers, had some funds, kind of some seed funds, and that service provider gave them a 6x investment on that. In exchange, the city received free service for X amount of years, and they were able to freeze a price point, with small adjustments annually for their customers. They saw that as a way to kind of put ownership within the tax base to have a voice with their providers. And there's some that just take it on as a city utility, and actually manage it from there, which requires ownership of it, just like we own our water lines. They own their internet, their fiber lines, and their the technology that goes around that, like the big center that all the data goes through, and providing services to their citizens. And then some of them partner up with providers and they white label it. So your bill, it says the city of White House on it, but it's actually being serviced by somebody else. It's equivalent to if we went that direction with, say, our trash provider, with Public Services. If we just put the city logo on the trucks, but it was them doing all the work, that's the model that some cities have taken. And CobbFendley might actually have more and better detailed examples of some of those as well. So any more questions on the EdCog meeting before I turn it over to these guys?
thanks for attending, really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Yeah, they had free sausage biscuits.
But not tacos.
No, not tacos. All right, well, Melissa, are you ready to come on up or?
Ms. Black had something, didn't you?
Yeah, so I want to give you all an update on a meeting I had earlier today with a internet service provider. Frontier Communications met with Susan and I today to talk about their plans for White House, and they indicated in a meeting today that they are at the point where I believe they are ready to move forward with installing a fiber network throughout most of White House. They, from what I understand, have some projects in final design phase with their engineers and are expecting to issue permit requests in the coming weeks, is what they've indicated. I think they will, based on our conversations today, they indicate that they will cover the majority of White House by December 31st of this year. With up to 2 gig symmetrical speeds, fiber to the home. So that's exciting news. It is, I went into that meeting thinking that it was very similar to some conversations that we've had with other providers as far back as 2 years ago. We're saying we're bringing fiber, we're bringing it into your community. The difference today was Frontier brought their construction people and management. They have a hard timeline. Susan and I were able to look at some maps of what their coverage areas will be. We feel confident that they are significantly further along than anyone else that we've spoken to in this process. One of the questions we asked them was, look, tonight we were kind of anticipating that the council may move forward with a request for information and ways to partner. And this is prior to seeing their coverage map. If there are areas in the city that don't make financial sense for you to cover, our goal is to really cover the whole city. Would you be interested in submitting information for that RFI for partnership opportunities? He indicated at that time, we're covering most of your city. If there are any areas that we aren't covering, they would be surprised, but they also didn't want to hold anything up to look for that partnership opportunity. So they are looking at fully funding the capital investment to put their network throughout our community. So I was glad we had that information prior to coming to tonight's meeting, but just know that the presentation and the study that are before you were prepared prior to us having those conversations. Again, we won't know anything until we actually start receiving some permit applications from Frontier, and that's what I told them. I said, look, we have this meeting tonight, and until we start seeing some actual submittals and plan designs and things that we can share and talk about with our community, don't be surprised if we don't continue to move forward, or we may not pump the brakes just yet, because again, we've heard that from other people. But it did have a very different feel to that conversation today. I think a lot of that is in large part to seeing what's fixing to come out from this study and the other providers that are moving into the community. So it was very promising, and we'll kind of see where we go from here.
So without sharing too much of what they showed you, would you consider the map that they displayed full coverage of the
Yes.
city? Okay.
There were some areas that were not covered, but those areas, Susan and I took a look at those. Those are places that are in our development pipeline. And so when we brought that up to them and said, hey, look, these are some areas that you don't show coverage, but we know construction is imminent. They said, oh yeah, we'll do greenfield development all day. We'll let us know where they are. We'll put us in touch with the developers, and we'll make sure that we're there. We'll make sure that our lines going to that area are sized appropriately. So they may not get 100%, not every citizen, it's
Right.
hard to tell. It was very conceptual what we were seeing, and they weren't willing to share that just yet publicly.
Yeah,
It is a
sure.
competitive business, so we do expect to have more information coming soon. But I would say that they were much more willing to talk about what areas they are going to cover than any other provider that we've spoken to thus far. Everything else has been very nebulous, but they were willing to show us their project maps, how they have their projects broken up, where they intend to do aerial versus buried, much further along than some of the other competitors.
And they'd be funded 100% of it?
Yes.
Question, have they been,
Even better.
Ms. Black, have they been around in this area, say 100, 200 mile radius?
So we asked that question. They have finished their network build out in Jacksonville. They are working to finish it in Kilgore. They've done Sulphur Springs, and a few others, so.
Nice.
Wow.
So just out of curiosity, so say if Frontier did it, do we make any revenue off of it with them bringing, even though they're funding all the?
So we do have some permit fees that you all enacted that ordinance for. I need to go back and
Franchise
research
fees
some
or-
franchise fees and see. The state legislature has made some changes to cable and internet franchises, so I need to go back and look at that. It's been a long time since I've studied that, so I need to go back and look at it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
curious.
kind of negligible. If you look at the franchise fees in our budget, it's not
much.
not that much.
I was just thinking if we were gonna fund, or figure out a way to fund it, how would we create revenue off of that investment,
Right.
basically?
Yeah.
Or would we even create revenue? Maybe.
Not counting what business it draws to town, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's good news. That's great. It sounds like that was a great meeting.
It was.
And that they brought the construction people is definitely positive. I mean, the reason we started the study to begin with is to create a marketplace, to create competition, and provide equity, just in case the business case didn't make sense to the providers. So both of those points are covered in that news. Really be happy whenever they start requesting permits and writing us checks for permits. That's when
Right.
you feel like they mean business.
Until I start seeing some engineered drawings, I
Tangible.
don't get too excited about much, but again, they were either much more open or much further along than conversations we've had prior to this, so. Either that's because they knew tonight was imminent, or they really are serious. I don't know that they would have that level of design done if they weren't serious.
Yeah.
So.
And those permit fees, those are kind of revenue neutral for us is the goal, just to make sure it doesn't cost the citizens money for somebody to come in. So that's not necessarily a revenue stream either, it's just something to balance out the cost of doing all that. Okay, well, yeah,
I
great.
guess our friends at CobbFendley will probably tell us whether or not they already have, Frontier already has fiber, I think, probably really close to us. Cause I think at that four-way, stop, out on the edge of town, one of those fiber poles is marked Frontier, so
Wow.
I think they're already partially here.
And they did indicate today they felt like they could move pretty quickly because they're gonna be overlaying their existing
That's-
copper lines in the area, so. And we're able, already have access to a lot of poles because of their phone service, that they've had here for quite some time, so. Here we go. Joking.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I hated that conversation wasn't until about 2:00 this afternoon, but I am glad it was prior to this meeting and some of the decisions that'll be before you tonight, so.
Yeah.
It's good information.
Well, with no further ado, thank you all for making the trip up.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is our.
I think you brought some rain.
Yeah, we hit a little bit on the early part of our drive, and I was like, oh no, I don't want 3.5 hours of rain, but
Hey,
it was actually really pretty, especially on
We
the
need
pretty part of the drive, trees, so. And the rain is always a blessing, so. Well, good to see you all again. My name is Melissa Beaudry. I'm a project manager at CobbFendley, and I'll let my team here introduce themselves as well.
I'm Jacob Triska, I'm a project engineer.
I'm Isabella Rainer, and I'm also a project engineer.
Day 6, week 2, day
Yeah.
4.
Oh.
nice.
Yeah, so really excited to have her join our team. Is going to bring great experience and passion and excitement. So she'll be working with us as we continue to help you all through the end of this phase of the project and on, and working with our municipal broadband team as well as maybe in some traditional broadband projects as well. So wanted to have her come and experience this part of the job. Which is the fun part in some ways because it's decision making or helping to facilitate through what next steps look like. So you all do have the plan in front of you. It is a dense 100 and something page document, and so it definitely still has its little pieces to flush through, but it's got a lot of good intel in there in terms of the meetings that we were able to hold and getting a better understanding of what a design of what we call a middle mile network could look like for the city of White House. And I think, yes, these two conversations that happened this week with the middle mile conversation the mayor had and the conversation with Frontier are super important and good timing. And I think we talked a little bit about it, but hope that our conversations that we've had over the last several months have helped inform how you all went into those conversations and allowed you all to have more agency and power for the city in working through what those negotiations might look like. So we do have a presentation. I kind of started yammering on, didn't I? Sorry, guys.
Fun in a circle.
I did. I've had coffee and food at Creekside, so I'm ready to go. So just a refresher, this is just the stages that we went through in the study. We are at the end of that with delivery of this document. But this document really should outline that scope of work in detail and show you all what we were able to find. Some key insights that are within that, we did have 11 different stakeholder meetings. This does include both community partners like the ISD and ECOG, as well as the ISPs, both in the area and potential partners for you all thinking through implementation. Frontier was not identified as a partner in that process, so that's interesting.
So they wouldn't meet with us.
Right. Oh, right.
David Russell actually mentioned earlier today, he said, yeah, you had my name, but we just weren't ready to talk about this because it's so competitive. We wanted to come with you when we were ready, and so that's why they were here today.
Yeah. So they are not included in that 11, so now kind of counted as 12 in the conversation. But as Leslie said, this document will stand as, while we want to consider plans like this a living document, at the same time you got to kind of cut it off at some point. So they won't be included in this as a first phase in the study. We did, as you all know, we've gone through the results of the survey and the speed test that we held, so we won't have to take up too much time discussing that unless you all want to, but it really reaffirmed what you all already know and why you went through this process. And so there's a need for expanded opportunities in broadband and internet service providers, as well as overall capacity and bringing fiber to the city. So with that, our middle mile design that is included in this and proposed for you all it is looked at as a greenfield, but it does propose 20 miles of fiber. So again, some of that is already existing fiber that is throughout the city in the ground or aerial. But what it would do is create that integral network that would connect throughout the city. And then we run through several business models in the business model implementation sections, but we're really going to focus on 3 with you all based on what we understand and what we know you all are looking for moving forward. And again, with this week's meetings, one of those is we can kind of clearly look at, but I also think that the conversation with Frontier could be potentially that partnership too. So it could be the market-driven approach where you just let the market drive it, let business be, let them come in, do what they want, obviously through your channels, make money off the permitting where you can, not impede business, but make sure it's within the needs and documented regulations of the city. But there is a potential for partnership, I think, even with Frontier's model, and we can talk a bit about that. The third would be a very different option. So that would not be with anything with Frontier. That's more of what we've been considering as a unique or innovative approach for the city, and that's the managed service approach. And that's more of what the mayor described as the white label. So you'd have a partnership agreement, there'd be investment on behalf of the city, and then potentially an ongoing contract with a internet service provider to come and provide that service under the label of the City of White House. Something to consider. So this is the HAL design. I'll pass it over to Jacob to walk you all through it.
So I know we went over this at our last meeting, but basically in summary, what we were hoping to design was something that's future-proof. If you're going to do something like this, it can't be a band-aid solution. It needs to last quite a long time. So we have a larger size fiber that wraps around the middle of the city, which we call a municipal backbone ring, which helps with the safety of the network. And then we know White House is growing, so in anticipation of that growth, we wanted to extend the proposed lines to reach the ETJ, go towards the lake, and just try and guess where that growth would likely be. When we get into the cost estimate, a lot of this includes these future-proof solutions. So overall, what we wanted to do was highlight the materials and the labor, and that comes out to close to $3 million. But again, for the high-level design, there are aspects here that are included that can be lowered in cost. Part of what we wanted to include is an extra spare duct, for example, for leasing that out for revenue purposes. Options like that. The fiber size could be lowered, and again, if you wanted to extend it to just the city limits, that's possible.
And to add on to that, as you can see the breakdown of cost, go to the next one. major cost is in that labor. So while yes, you could, play with nickels and dimes by reducing the fiber size here and there, if the goal is to future-proof for the city, that's not where the cost is coming from. It's not from that fiber size. So it's from the labor. So lay it once, do it right, have it ready for future intel. And as we said, and as Jacob just reiterated, the design is a greenfield approach. And
Yeah.
so there are areas where there's already that existing fiber. Whether or not there's access to it, if it's got other providers where part of this is connected to the ISD's network. Not the way in which the ISD's network was built is through E-rate dollars. It's not allowed to be accessed by any other folks than the ISD. So while there might be existing fiber, we have to look at that as not available. So overbuilding where necessary, but there is some areas where there's already existing capacity.
Right, and just to reiterate too, this is primarily middle mile, or it's all middle mile. We did include 2 connections for something that would be public Wi-Fi where we know there's parks or the complex. But so all of this is aimed with the design to minimize last mile, so that if a last mile provider were to come in, most of this would already be built, and they would have less construction, less just work in front of them.
Or this could be where if the city's investing in this part, then there would be an ownership component. So that would be under that, of the 3 models, market-driven, partnership, managed service. Under the partnership, if you all did want to look at, and this is where I think even with Frontier, if you all did want to say, hey, we're willing to invest, especially maybe if it's just in that municipal backbone ring. So we want to have partial ownership and ability to have that added conduit within the municipal backbone ring, and we're willing to put $1 million towards it, or whatever that amount ends up looking like, probably less than that, then, well, or maybe that. Then that could be an opportunity for negotiations where it is more of a partnership. Frontier's still coming in, they're still controlling all that last mile, but allows for you all to have partial ownership, connect city facilities, and have that component. And really that could be, so that wouldn't be this entire area we propose in the middle mile, but really that central area that gives you some ownership, potential future development, that really allows Frontier to still come in and do what they're looking to do. They might not be open to that, but it's a potential conversation.
So an elementary question, you go back there real quick. We as a city are responsible for laying all of this, the money-wise, correct? Is that what we're discussing? No.
No, well,
The 3 million,
It could be,
what
depending
we're,
on the business model. But this is just saying, if Company X was to come in right now and build all this from the ground up, this is what we would recommend as a design and what we would expect to see as a cost.
and when we started these conversations, there is a grant program that is currently open, and that's the one the mayor went to for the middle mile. So say that one of these potential options out there in the sky is that City of White House does partner with the ETCOG on this middle mile application. This is what City of White House could propose to ETCOG as an added component, and is able to put $1 million towards it, and then that grant would fund the remaining funds needed to fully execute this.
Yeah, what they're looking for in their grant application is 3 to 5 projects per county. And right now, we're the only city in our county in motion, so all 3 to 5 of those projects would come from us.
But they have also identified their own segments
Yeah,
of projects that are on their list right now.
yeah, so that
because-
knocks
Yeah,
some out, yeah.
yeah.
Do you know of any examples of cities that just did the backbone part of it and then partnered with the,
Definitely, yeah. And what
how does that work?
So what it allows, it really is focused, and this is where you all are a smaller city, and so there isn't as much infrastructure that needs to be connected. But the real goal when cities do that is they're connecting, all the different city facilities, and they have a municipal network. And not that it's doing that fiber to the home last mile, but that means that there's a specific network that is for all the city infrastructure, which is good for security, redundancy, overall public safety. But then what you can do is you can have other conduit, you can have other fibers off that you can lease off to other ISPs to then go do that last mile or business services. And then there's a leasing agreement that can happen. It's since the city owns the infrastructure, where the ISP is leasing it from the city. So if you all built out that middle backbone, you would have ownership of it, and that private ISP would lease to connect off of it for you, and you would also have the private network for the city infrastructure.
And what do those leases look like? How much revenue does that generate?
It depends.
Does it mix? I mean,
We can
just-
come up with those numbers
is
if
it
we
a-
wanna dig into that, but it's,
It's almost like an evergreen stream of revenue too.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
That's what I
Well,
was
there's cost and maintenance.
Yes.
So to own and manage the infrastructure, it has a recurring cost as well.
correct.
So you need to outsource that or hire the personnel to make sure that it's maintained.
That is very true.
So
it is-
I guess it just depend on how much revenue is actually bringing in. You know,
Yeah, and you'll need people to actually buy into it. So it could be one of those things where if we have marketplace solutions that are already here, trying to find people that will come in to want to compete in that marketplace as well. But the question, how big is that municipal backbone ring? Do you remember, Jacob, off the top of your head?
I do not, but all of it was about 20 miles, so it might be 10 or so.
Yeah, and it's right about $100,000 a mile, something like that, for everything, labor,
Give or take, yeah.
yeah. So just give you an idea of what that would be.
Yeah, and so to go into the cost estimate for the bottom left table, what we wanted to do is provide additional context into some of the specifics and give a range of estimates. We know right now supply chain and everything is going up in price. So this is a very current cost estimate from a partner of ours. And all of these are pretty accurate to today, but doing this project isn't gonna happen today. It's gonna happen in a year from now, 2 years from now. So, just with that in mind, these are probably likely to change, but that's why we wanted to include these ranges.
But they are from a vendor that we work with directly doing deployment from within the last 30 days, so pretty current now.
And some of the additional considerations on the right are just additional costs that we would expect to be added on top of that.
So is that total cost estimate, is that the middle range? What range is that? Cause that's not lower or high.
It's the middle, yes.
Middle?
So that adds up to an additional 50% on top of that?
If it's the high.
No, I mean the
Of the labor
7%.
costs.
Yeah,
Oh, we're talking
all
about
through
the-
consideration. So if you add up those percentages, you're looking at 50% on top of 3.3?
It's basically just saying to include things like overhead and engineering and permitting.
But yes, it could add additional 50% of current
Right.
costs, yes. And again,
And
those,
then,
Okay.
and then the top 3 rows are estimated crew costs.
Like your assumptions used to
Yeah.
calculate the labor.
well, no, that would be additional.
Included. So the labor price is doing the cost of doing the specific labor for this,
Right.
and then those crew costs would need to be included as well.
What would be included in labor that's not in the additional considerations? What type of labor would that be?
So the act of boring, for example, so all of this.
Oh,
again-
so the first 2 or 3 are included in that? No, wait, they're an additional consideration.
No, they're not. So what we wanted to do for this, by the way, for the high-level design, is everything varied. So on top of the crew cost, we wanted to include typical costs for completing specific labor tasks as well.
Oh, I see.
You may have already said this, Leslie, but did we confirm that the PPP funds could be used for this project?
American Rescue Plan
Or-
funds, yes,
yeah, or
can.
American
yes.
Rescue.
We hadn't got that other million yet.
Not to my knowledge. Should be sometime in August. Jennifer's on vacation, so we have this week, I don't know it.
Okay.
So, I think, there's a lot that's happened this week for you all to consider. That's the short answer, but it's really good. I mean, I'm with you, Leslie, that you don't wanna get too excited until there's permits in hand and all of that, but, you've had now several of these meetings with different providers, and if this one felt different and you have all of this context to go into it, there's meat there at least, so,
Because doing this study ultimately is advertising, saying we need solutions. So if Frontier is the solution you choose, you're still solving your problem.
Yeah, I can't help but think that us approaching this aggressively and openly might have led to some of the outcomes that we have.
Not only that, but I think it, to your point, Melissa, it put us in a really good position and some expertise to ask the right questions in those meetings. I mean, I went in, Melissa provided me a pretty exhaustive list of questions that I needed to ask, I mean, not the best way to ask today, so that, you know, we could really get down to the meat of what they're saying they're gonna do. Making sure that it is truly fiber to the home and not over coax for the last bit.
Oh yeah, you got them with that, huh?
Yeah, see, I mean, some of those things that I would have never known to ask had we not had the technical expertise backing us and having those conversations over the last 6 months or so.
and also the fact that, I don't know if this is something we can share with the ACP.
Yes, they are, yeah, if you wanna talk to them.
I should know if we can, like, what can we
I
say?
think so.
Okay. That one of the questions asked was if they participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program. And so that program is the federal program where if any family meets the low to moderate income requirements, that they can get a $30 a month rebate on their bill.
Oh,
And so any provider, and Frontier says that, do you know if they said that they are currently or actively going
I
to?
said, are you a participant? And they said, yes.
Okay,
So-
because there are some that are like, we're submitting our application. There's some that are like, we're
No, they
submitting,
said
but
yes,
there are
we
a
think
lot
so.
that are already included. And so that means that any person who does come on to Frontier, if they do qualify, they can submit and then $30 a month will be taken off their bill.
But we're not gonna forget one thing here. There's a old character in town or entity, it's called Suddenlink, which is now gonna be Optimum. And they're not doing Optimum just for kicks and yucks and grins. There's a reason. So, they could, I don't understand all the technicalities, probably don't have to know it, but, I mean, like right now, I have internet at my house. I mean, how does Frontier, they come in and they use the same coax to my internet box in the house? I mean,
They would have a different line, and so that's where the major
Okay.
distinction,
because of its fiber, right?
fiber, yeah.
So it takes a special hard wire to come into the home.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Without
And
going through engineering class.
Yeah, yeah, me neither. I was doing class.
They would have their own middle mile.
Last mile.
The
They-
last
and they
mile,
would have
whatever
it
it is.
all
Yeah, all of
all
it.
different. But when we say.
But Optimum could too.
They could, and that's to the mayor's point, to all of our point, that's the free market. If they come in and they wanna upgrade their existing facilities to
guarantee
fiber,
you.
great.
I can promise you.
Well, then that we met with and they indicated that they were.
They will. I mean, they're
Yeah.
already built out here with fiber to the node. They just need to put it to the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. That's exactly what we want. We want as many that want to compete in this market as possible, so that
That's
people.
kind of what I'm thinking,
have a
like, how do
choice.
we continue, like, throwing the bait out there and getting, I'm being serious, because isn't that, that's the goal, is to have competition and have more people want to come into our community. And honestly, if we go all in on this and we become the utility provider for it, we're Suddenlink, we get the calls.
Mhm.
We're gonna be the people that the customers hate. So I think what we're doing is great, but I think at some point we gotta stall a little bit and make these people want us. More
And I
than
think-
just Frontier.
I think that's where we were headed with the request for information, is to see what providers,
Mhm.
we could attract with a partnership opportunity.
Yeah.
If it didn't make,
Right.
the business case for them on their own, what could we do to help maximize their dollars?
Exactly.
And attract them to our community.
Yeah, I like that.
But I do think with the conversation that we had with Frontier today, I mean, I am hopeful, but I do not want us to delay this for some promises when we don't have anything actually coming across the desk.
So are we only able to partner with one then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, usually when you put out an RFI, you'll get one interested party. They may come into it with other partners, but it becomes a partnership between us, the city, and whatever entities want to join on that partnership. So it's up to the people that respond to that RFI how they want to enter into that business agreement, either as individual companies or maybe in a partnership with other companies. That maybe company A has a bunch of, fiber laying over here already and company B has it over here, and we're asking them to do the whole city. So for their to make financial sense to them, they may enter a partnership.
And that could be, so we could go through the RFI process and see who responds, because there are other providers. Suddenlink, Optimum could respond, Ontario could respond, Cirrus One could respond, Vexus could respond.
Yeah, Metro.
Frontier,
Yep.
Metro, all of them could respond. And then from there, and the good thing I think about an RFI versus an RFP is there's no commitment to a proposal and a contract and a dollar amount at the end. RFIs just tell us what you think, and then that allows you all to evaluate those responses, and then if you get a lot that seem like they could be good, then you can issue an RFP, you'll have more information, you could say, okay, this, at the end of this, then we'll be evaluating you for a contract, you're putting dollar amounts with it, and we're moving forward after that. Or you could just have one that comes forward, and you can move forward from there into contract negotiations, you don't have to go through an RFP.
From your perspective, what are the two ends of the spectrum as to how the city ought to participate in the partnerships? So, like on the low end, I would think it's something like a service level agreement only, where we get some type of we basically buy in for some small amount of money to guarantee the services, which Frontier may actually be open to. And that's a form of partnership with a relatively low buy-in for the city, and it helps make the community happy, right? Because we're basically guaranteed the service. On the high end, that I feel like that's us actually owning the middle mile and having somebody else operate on that, and also as the last mile provider. And I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think that's probably a little more than what we would have appetite or time for, especially given the interest in some of these other groups. So what is y'all's opinion on where we ought to fall somewhere in that partnership spectrum?
I mean, I think you're spot on, and that's kind of what you were saying as well. I mean, our job as your consultant is to lay out the facts, but if you really do want our opinion in that regard, I would agree. I don't think there's a need for you all to take that risk, because there's a real risk with doing that managed service approach. I think it was really interesting. There are partners that were interested, and we had pretty in-depth conversations and multiple conversations with them. But of course, it's going to work for them because they get a continuing contract, same as your waste management, to offer the managed service. But there is a big risk for you all to take that on, and I just don't think there's a need now that you've got potentially multiple providers that are wanting to come in and do last mile. If you didn't have anyone knocking out at the door, that'd be a different conversation, but you do. So that's the end of the spectrum of potential. We wanted to provide that to you all as an opportunity to think through what that could look like. But I don't think that's what you need. I don't think the reward from that really outweighs the potential risk, especially in the short term. And I mean, you all are the decision makers today, but for tomorrow, but that short term of today, it'd be hard to day-to-day manage through. I really do.
I'd like
So-
someone else to spend their money and not ours.
That's what a service level
Exactly.
agreement mostly does. But so like on that low end of the spectrum, so let's say that's the route we want to go. Would you still put out an RFI to see what potential partners were interested in that?
Oh yeah, and I think to your point, Commissioner, that's the way you keep each other alive.
That's how you get
put the bait-
Frontier to actually pull their permits.
There's nothing to
Exactly.
lose on the RFI.
Yeah, that's
at all.
lighting a fire.
I was just wondering about the level of specificity in the actual RFI. And so like if we're already kind of leaning one direction, it sounds to me that we would kind of want to make that obvious in the RFI, that that's like our preferred route.
And you, just to be clear, you were saying that you would support just us owning the middle mile, which would be the not.
We would not own,
Anything,
really
it'd be
anything.
go on the low end of the
So-
spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so
We'd be purchasing the opportunity to enter a service level agreement contract
gotcha. Okay.
to give the citizens a voice whenever things are going sideways on their service.
But I don't think that it's a bad idea to take off the table, oh, yeah, we will go spend our money and just do it ourselves if y'all can't come
Because
to the
I
table.
think we.
agreed. A service level agreement allows us to set those those parameters, right? Like if we want to guarantee, you know, the symmetrical, you know, gig service, right? That would be part of our RFI. So who wants to enter into a partnership with us to provide this to our citizens, you know, and you basically own it, we'll buy into that service contract.
And I think
Am I explaining that?
Yep,
Okay.
I think to Councilmember Chambers' point, you know, when we were meeting with them today, I think we went into this fiber feasibility study with probably three main concerns is, affordable service,
You just read my mind.
good service,
You just read my mind again. Yep.
you know, and competition. Well, I think our conversation with Frontier meets two of those, being, you know, competition and affordable service. They shared with us their rate plans, which are applicable to all of their fiber customers. And with the Affordable Connectivity Program, they certainly meet that qualification. But I think that does give us a real opportunity for service level insurance. Based on mine and Susan's conversation with them today, and they could have been playing hardball knowing that we were gonna, you know, potentially make a decision about an RFI tonight. I got the impression they aren't really interested in a partnership, that they're moving forward either way, but again, it could have just been because of timing, knowing that we were heading into that meeting tonight. They were pretty, we'll be willing to talk about a partnership after we get through with what we're gonna do. We're moving forward and going on, so.
You know what?
Dollar amounts can change things, I understand that too, so.
You know what this entails too? A lot of this is speed. All right, this will handle the speed problem. If I understand, fiber is the way to go. All right, even better than satellites, possibly. Customer service. People are not happy with the current situation. A lot of it is customer service. They don't want to talk to somebody in Korea or New York that they can't understand. And I love New York and I love Korea. Number 3, economics. I want something that's going to provide economic, you know, for industry to maybe move in here. Like it or not, people love this city. People are going to come. If you keep making it better and better, you're going to have more industry. You can't stop it, okay? Maybe even a walk-in office that's friendly. Friendly, okay? Friendly, all right? Cost effectiveness. And also, what we're doing, y'all, is we're looking down the road. We're not looking right now. We're looking 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But again, I stress the problem right now with a certain carrier is there's no customer service. It's going to break. Things are going to break, and when they do, people honestly will pay to get help. If your car breaks, you'll go down to, you'll pay Toyota, whatever, and get help, you know, and so that's kind of the things that I look at.
And that's a worthy.
It's just common sense.
I took some notes while you were talking there, and I think those are some aspects we can ask in the RFI. Where is your customer service located, and you know, where do you have storefronts available, things like that. And we asked that to Texas and Nicole with them, but so I think you make solid points, and I think the RFI we can work to tailor it in a way that it can be open-ended, I think, without scaring anyone away, but also it might waste our time a little bit, but I don't think it really changes anything. I think it just keeps that door open, and it gives all these providers an opportunity to really come to the table.
And I will add too that in the PowerPoint we showed last time we were here, there was a table showing the change from the advertised entry-level pricing compared to long-term pricing. And for the incumbent, it was upwards of 300 to 400%. So just because the advertised price for new customers is low doesn't mean existing customers.
And that can be part of that service level agreement negotiations is, you know, are you going to up the price after 2 years?
What's the timing look like on the RFI process? Because I think we're all going to agree that we're ready to go forward with the RFI.
So before Melissa answers that question, let me put back on my city manager hat. So I think we're at the end. This kind of report and study concludes what we are already under contract with for CobbFendley.
Okay.
So I think to move forward with an RFI and direct them to start drafting that, we need to look at kind of a phase 2 agreement with CobbFendley. So they have sent that proposal over. It is under the limit to necessitate going out for another bid process. So I think we could move forward with that at a future council meeting if we wanted to. And I think that cost is somewhere between $40,000 and just under $50,000. So just as a consideration, that does come at their expertise does come at a cost. So,
But I would also say that was before these conversations, and that included more high-level design work. So based on the conversation today, I actually would like the opportunity to give you all a revised proposal, and that would be more on the utility coordination side, technical assistance. I don't know the amount off the top of my head, I have to go back and run those numbers, but it would likely be less because we'd be doing less of that design work. If you all aren't looking to move forward with managed service or really get in depth into the network, it's more of that technical assistance and utility coordination. So if you all don't mind, I could get that background too, but.
So I got a question. The RFI, it sounds like we're pushing, that we're trying to partner with just one provider. So, one, what is the difference between Frontier not wanting to do anything with the RFI, they're just gonna come and lay it, they're just gonna do their stuff. What is the benefit of partnering, first of all, us choosing just one provider to partner with? Because that just red flags pop up, Suddenlink, you're dominating, you only got one provider you're working with, we're handcuffed. Why would we wanna do that? What are the benefits?
Heath, I can answer that for you if I may.
Please.
So you heard him lay out a whole bunch of bullet points that he wants to see, right? By partnering and getting into a service level agreement, we can make those solid, executable contract line items, and they have to hold to those, like whatever he considers friendly, right? Like you can't quantify friendly, but you can quantify a lot of other customer satisfaction numbers, right? Those could all be included if you can get that through negotiation.
But then you have Frontier, who's gonna come in, and they're not gonna have a SLA with us.
Sure.
So why, there's gonna be other ones, why are we even wanting to partner with anybody if they're just gonna come in
Right.
and do it? I don't get it.
So like in one case, you're being optimistic and trusting their word that they're gonna deliver something, and we know how that typically goes. In the other case, they're contractually obligated.
Right, and I guess the hope would be that, and this is what I'm saying, but this might not be the case, but that if Frontier is coming in, but we go through this RFI process, they're saying right now they're not interested in an agreement, it'd be great if they came to the table with something. So then there's a little bit of both. So it could still be one, and I hear what you're saying, aren't we gonna run into the same problem? But it does give you that bit of control that we're looking for, but it still is allowing the market to drive itself. You do still end up with more than one provider at the
Yeah,
table.
because that doesn't mean Suddenlink has to go.
No, they're not,
It just means that we as a city have a partnership and we can hold them accountable in an actual contractually obligated way.
So are we not able to partner with multiples? I know RFPs,
I wouldn't
Pretty
think
well,
another
but
company
RFIs.
would be interested in doing that. I mean,
yeah,
if
honestly,
I partnered with them, would you want to also if we offered the same thing and we're competitors?
So why would we also,
Yeah.
like,
I would.
why would we enter into
He does it
multiple
'cause I'm
contracts
awesome.
for the same?
Bad example then.
No, those are good
But-
questions, good questions. yeah.
I also think for a city of your size, I don't know if you've got Suddenlink here, and you've got now, if you had another provider that comes in and offers full fiber, besides Suddenlink upping their existing capacity to then meet new competition demands, you're not gonna get a third provider to come in. You're just not at that size.
it's all about who's first.
Yeah, and that's why they're like, we're coming in, like Greenfield, there's no fiber here, we're good. So then it's just gonna be, competition comes in, and then someone's gonna say, oh great, we have to up to fiber, we're gonna lose customers. And that's great, I mean, honestly, I'm like, if this actually happens, it's what we all wanna see.
And I'm the laziest person in the world. I do not want anyone in my house. I don't want a new box. I don't want to know my new password. So when Suddenlink calls and says, ma'am, are you switching to Frontier? And I say, what are you going to do for me to not? I'm going to stay with them.
Right,
And I'm not the only person that'll just say, okay.
right,
Yeah, but
So that's where you
I
get competition.
want our people to be taken care of.
yeah.
That's the biggest problem. I mean, all of us, I know me included, I want my people taken care of, including me. When I have a problem, I wanna be able to get it solved and move on.
Heath,
So
this is literally a game of like, do you want the possibility of two bad options, or do you want to try to
John makes a point.
create some assurance that we're gonna get what we actually want out of it?
Sure.
And there's no guarantee that we can get that service level agreement,
That's
and there's
right.
no guarantee that even half of the things that we're wanting are gonna come out of it, even if we get an
Exactly
agreement,
right.
you know, but it's worth a shot.
And how long is the contract for then? What do you suggest? Is it 3 years renewable, 3 times for 2 years each? Is it a 5-year total term? Is it 10? What before we go out for bid again then?
Well,
Depends on if it's leveraged against like equity position, so you can do that with, where you're essentially buying.
I'd definitely negotiate for longer than 3, I'll say
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Infrastructure is 20-year game, so.
And I think the last time we talked about the RFI, it was gonna be like, here's kind of what we're thinking, and give them the opportunity to present what they would like to propose.
Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna counter no matter what, so we should ask for more, I would assume.
And we'll have benchmarks in place, so after 2 years, we'll be able to go and say, okay, your SLAs, this is what you're meeting. If you're not meeting it, we can just cut them, right? Is that
Yeah,
how we would
that's
do
how,
that?
that's how we'd like to see it.
But what we hope is that they
Clawback.
do work with us and form a good partnership, and that causes the competition to step up their game. I mean, that's what you wanna see.
Correct.
Yeah, if you're getting competitive prices and good customer service, then it's either compete or die in
Yeah.
that environment.
It is,
Exactly.
and so then if the other one dies, then that leaves room for someone else to come in.
I do wanna temper expectations, though, if you all aren't owning that backbone, then the ability to cut the contract and expect that, I mean, you're still not at the 51% of the power agreement.
Mhm.
You've got a voice, you've got a seat at the table. If they own the infrastructure, they've buried the lines.
Yeah, then it'll be more fine driven at that point.
Yeah.
It'll be
Mhm.
violations and fines and,
Mhm.
But it,
Public opinion and.
yeah, but you're still not fully in control, but yes.
I'm not trying to beat a technical dog here, but how much maintenance is required with fiber? I mean, is it very labor intensive? Is it always breaking down? Or of course, when you have a backhoe hit it, you know, you're gonna have a big problem.
It's really more, you know, people not
Just
calling before
wondering.
they dig, it's utility coordination. There's some people that when fiber's being installed, they're going and stealing it thinking they can sell it, and then they get to a junkyard and they're like, we can't do anything with these fiber strands. There's a lot of that happens, just, you know, kind of vandalism.
But you bury it, and I mean, you're gonna have maintenance, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not just leave it alone and see you in a year.
about
No.
20-30 years, isn't
It's
that right?
20, yeah, 20.
Typically at the front end too, the maintenance isn't
Just
a big
curious,
issue at the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
That's the-
Because Sunlink is constantly with coax cable, constantly copper is, you know,
But that's where fiber is different. It's in
yeah,
the
a little bit more, yeah, glass
container.
beams, whatever.
Yeah, most of the weight of it is shielding
Yeah,
and to make it rigid, because it's, by default, it's really flexible, so they make it rigid.
amazing, very amazing.
Yeah, and also if you own it, then you're the one out there splicing people in, so there's the constant, like, the labor comes from ownership and adding people to your network and then provisioning them on your network. So it's a lot of IT side stuff too.
Yeah,
I really think while that sounds like it can provide you with that oversight and decision-making power that you're looking for, it's a big pull.
And usually revenue neutral, like everything we do
Yeah.
is pretty much revenue neutral, so it's not like an income stream that we can use to build beautiful things, it's just
Exactly.
yeah,
break
Yeah,
even.
and that doesn't include the non-tangible headache cost, you know, along with it.
right. Boy, I mean, the end of the year is kinda, that's amazing.
That's a blink of the eye.
I mean, even anything possible is kind of exciting. You know, I mean, Tyler's coming on. I mean, I go North Tyler all the time, and it's like, hey, Mike, I'm real happy. I said, why? Well, $30 a month. What? Wow. So, I mean, 30 is better than 100.
Well, 30 is if you qualify your CP, it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's
30
coming up with
might be
SLAs?
accurate.
You, Leslie?
Yeah, I know.
After the-
You're coming up with SLAs? Who comes up with
No,
those?
that would be CobbFendley helping us with that.
So if this is something that's gonna,
We're under our phase two.
Yes, yes.
if this is direction that's gonna phase into the next council meeting, I have a question now that you two have had a chance to look at the plans that came in. Are you comfortable with kind of, like, you look at building plans and zoning plans and you have a lot of expertise in that. Now that these plans are starting to come in for fiber, is that something that we need to outsource probably? Getting a recommendation and oversight on those?
So, yeah, Mayor and Council, my recommendation would be, based on your conversations tonight, I think we come back at the next council meeting with a couple of things. I think we come back, with kind of a phase two, approach with CobbFendley, to prepare an RFI based on our conversation tonight. But I think we also look at using CobbFendley and their expertise to provide, engineering review for these plans as they come in. As the mayor said, Susan and I can look at development plans, but even outsource those for engineering review, to make sure that we're protecting our citizens and that it's being held to our design standards. I think, while we have a right-of-way permit ordinance, we do not have any design standards for these things as they come in. I think CobbFendley can help us do that, in a way that Susan and I just either don't have the capacity or the technical expertise to do on our own. We need to outsource that in some way, so that would be incredibly helpful as we start getting these permits coming across.
Here's what I suggest us do. This is my opinion. Time is of the essence, right? Time is of the essence. We're trying to get some things done quickly. I said we approve it all. Let's just get it done. Let's just do it. Make a motion to just go forward with it all. They want to negotiate price.
So you don't have an item on your agenda to.
That's what I
approve
think
a
we should do.
contract? Okay.
Yeah, that'll be 2 weeks from last Tuesday, so the 26th. We can,
Have another special meeting next week.
Which I won't be here for that.
Take some
I'll be out of
time,
town for that.
to.
so
get
it'll
this
appear,
process
the agenda
started.
item next meeting would be to begin the RFI process.
And we can, understanding that, you know, we're here to support you all, we can go ahead and have that drafted, the RFI drafted.
Oh, that'd be
Even if
great.
we're not under phase two
Yeah,
proposal, we can just do that and, you know, have it happen under phase two once that gets.
We'll do
once
phase
that
two
gets approved.
approval first and then consideration.
And then we can go ahead and have it, we can work through a review of that beforehand, and so it can be on your agenda for issuing in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And
Well,
we recommend
I won't
30
be
days.
here, but I'm giving my fellow members my verbal that I would go ahead and
You'll
approve it as
be,
well.
I think you'll be well
There you go.
represented there. So that addresses your concern. You didn't want to lose any time between now and the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When
I don't
So
wanna
if
get
they're
to
working
big
on
point,
it,
too.
and then when we approve it, it's,
Big issues on
Right.
street, 30
I
days.
agree, 100%.
yeah, that's great.
And I think that also gives us some time for Frontier to put their money where their mouth is. And
I
hopefully
agree.
We have some permits coming across the desk
Sure.
prior to that meeting.
Oh, and speaking, so we have those permits that were put in place and some fees associated with them. Hopefully that washes out any third-party recommendations we would have to get when reviewing those plans.
We'll take a look at that as part of their proposal.
You know what else? You know what else I want us to do is to make sure, and everything said tonight has been great, you know, and that is, but I want us to go one more step in this is just my opinion, to where you're covered. You know what I mean? I mean, what I'm saying is one more step, maybe to ensure. Everybody knows I love economic development. I don't know why. Maybe it's my marketing background, but maybe one more step to make sure that we get kind of a little edge, you know, because I like what Scott said at Tyler Economic Development Office. When I go down there every once in a while, we talk a lot about a lot of things, including Mississippi, our backgrounds, you know. But I mean, he said that this is so important. Fiber optic for the future is so important. And I hope we can go one more extra, maybe small baby step to make sure that we go a little bit further than the average
Yeah.
person might
I'm thinking,
go, you know?
I'm thinking we already are.
I think
Oh,
so
yeah.
too.
We
Okay.
already are. We're there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Give
we
you
are
More
there.
than one step further.
Now, I'll give
Okay.
you the example of
We're
that
there.
is
Yeah.
when we talk about the number of fiber strands that we're sending, so it's It's not just what is needed now. When we say put 280 fiber strands in that backbone,
Yeah.
that's to allow for the city of White House, when you all, 20 years down the road, when we have flying cars everywhere or whatever,
That's good.
that there's enough to
Good.
support that network. So that's where, when we're reviewing these design sets, we're saying how many fibers are you putting into that conduit there? What does that look like?
That's
So we can
comforting.
evaluate
Yeah.
capacity. And that's that extra mile.
Well,
That's why you wanna bury the cables, cause of flying cars.
in our conversation
It's
today,
drones.
I was telling Frontier, I said, well, Salina just got recognized with the governor's office for being a gigabit city. They're offering 2 gig. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a month ago that they were getting recognized. So I said, well, I like to be first, so.
One more question. All right, right now, suddenly, optimum, whatever you want to say. What is kind of the middle area of you people that know this technicality stuff? How fast is their middle, not their top, but their middle ground right now?
You
Here,
mean upload and download speeds?
yeah,
Probably 500 on paper.
500
On
MPS.
paper.
Well, that's download, their upload's
Yeah.
way below
So
500.
the thing with, because it's copper, you can't get that symmetrical. So you can sometimes get really high
Mhm.
download, but the upload is not as high. And so, but with fiber, it's often symmetrical. So you're
So-
bing, 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 bing.
So fiber is like
That's technical
multitudes,
terms.
multitudinal, much more higher, much more. It's like comparing
More
a
consistent.
Volkswagen with a Rolls Royce.
You're literally
0-60.
comparing the speed of light with something else.
It's
So
good. Good
the
point.
physics are quite literally the physics, right? So-
John, I couldn't have said it better, sir.
No, I mean, that's really what
No,
we're
it's
dealing
good-
with,
good
and that's
analogy.
why it's superior. It's
Yeah.
not an analogy, it's
Yeah.
the actual physics, right? Like, that's why it's faster than satellite. Satellite will always have more latency.
Yeah, it's
for
almost
that
like if you get a higher plan on fiber, you're paying for them not to slow it down anymore. It's kinda how it feels.
I will say though, some of the things I've seen, just because they have fiber, doesn't mean to your house they will give you symmetrical speeds. So that's something you need to ensure. It has the capabilities to, but it doesn't mean every provider will do that.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that it's not split out to 32.
That's the kind of stuff I'm
32
talking
and-
about.
Yep.
Good point. Good point. I want us to
Yeah, they
have,
indicated
I want the
48.
White House to shine, you know?
Right.
But
That's right.
I do, I really do.
Shine it up, baby. Bright
Shine
star.
at light speed.
That's right. Let the light shine on me.
Shine.
I just know what they tell me.
No, and and that's more than what they're saying. So
And I know the study is not short, but if you do have any edits, comments, whatever, just feel free to email us.
You let me know, I'll funnel them.
John will let us all know. He's very good. I appreciate all your, man, you're like the brains of this whole operation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There was a
absolutely.
file that didn't upload in one of these spaces.
yes,
Yeah,
there's-
we saw that.
and it also says we're missing a period between 2 points.
We're gonna need.
That's the stuff that I'm gonna find.
That's
for you.
great.
That's it though.
This,
Got nothing
I'll
else.
be honest, this is still, we were making changes even yesterday on certain parts of it, so there's still some QA
You
to
got a,
see.
you got
but-
1180 page. report,
Oh yeah, and when you like change one paragraph and then all of a sudden everything throughout it.
Yes, or 7 pages down, one thing shifts because of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to their credit, we had a meeting on Monday knowing that the mayor's meeting yesterday and my meeting today was gonna drastically probably change this conversation tonight.
Yeah, they were finishing up the document right before they jumped in the car.
Yeah.
Just curious, we don't have citizen input in this meeting, right?
No, sir.
Okay, just wondering, yeah.
If another potential fiber partner wants to reach out, how would they go about doing so?
Through the RFI process.
Yeah, at this point, well, now that we've kind of indicated, I think that we're gonna move with an RFI, the appropriate thing would be that they need to do so during that process.
Y'all have nothing to do with Tyler right now?
It says an engineer.
No, okay.
So John, when you were out,
You're the apple of our eye.
Well, we're honored.
Yeah.
when you were out, I had mentioned we should just move forward with it, save time. And, so they can work on getting that RFI, and then it's just logistics voting on it. I won't be here next week. I mean, in 2 weeks, but I'm giving my verbal to everyone here saying, yes, I'm for it.
He's whipping the
So we
notes.
can,
So
we
we
can
can't
just
actually
speed
vote
up,
on
but
it till the
can't
next
vote on it
meeting.
tonight till next meeting.
Right.
yeah.
Will we be voting on the RFI itself or the extension of?
Both.
To go out for RFI.
To go
Yeah,
out
to
for.
get the RFI, we would need to enter the extension contract with CobbFendley.
Yes, with both,
And then
so
they
there's
will
for
push out
both,
the
correct, yeah.
But we'll go ahead and draft the RFI before there's an extension of our contract in good faith and just because. So that'll be ready for approval on the agenda.
Appreciate that.
What do you take us for, upstanding?
You tell him, John.
Didn't know with too many elected officials.
I literally referred to myself today as the Tony Soprano to someone else's Uncle Junior. I did.
I don't think I caught that.
If you did, you know.
All right. Any further discussion on this topic?
Very exciting.
All right, thank you again.
It really is. Thank you, CobbFendley.
Thank you, appreciate it, thank you.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
We look forward to continuing to work with you all through this, and it's exciting.
It
Yeah.
is, it is.
Yeah,
There's
for sure.
hope. There's hope.
All right, any further comment from council?
Your haircut looks good.
It's the easiest way to lose 5 pounds.
Wow,
There it is.
I got you, girl.
not an option for me. All right, that takes us to item C, adjourn. And with that, the time is now 7:12 and this meeting is adjourned.
Right.
Good stuff. What's your plate to go, Georgia?
I think I am too. I want another chicken roll.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a few to go too, if that's all right.
Miss Georgia, thank you for the wonderful groceries.
Nice. Yeah.
Very nice of